Narendra Modi represents a phenomenon. Decisions are made by the Prime Minister's office. Amit Shah virtually running the government today. In the third term, there is a lot of dissatisfaction. Also, people are expressing, young people are expressing. NEET exam, the education system, there is dissatisfaction. There is dissatisfaction at the loss of livelihoods. Today, they are facing an existentialist crisis. It's a fatigue setting in. Too many voices say, ये हिंदू मुस्लिम बहुत हो गया. रहना तो हमें साथ साथ है. I feel Rahul is probably the most courageous politician in India today. You know, today we are talking about an alternative to BJP. He had brought about a paradigm shift in Indian politics. What is happening to Mamata Banerjee? What is happening to the regional parties? There is a churn on. Delhi, it's a very incestuous world. Tamasha hai, performance hai, jod tod hai. There is a nautanki every hour. There is not a dull moment in Indian politics.
We love Delhi for so many things, for its poetry and its history, for its gardens in spring and its ruins at dusk. But beneath that Delhi has always lived another one, and few people have understood that Delhi as deeply or watched it as closely as my guest today. On her Twitter bio, she says she enjoys writing about the great nautanki called Indian politics. For nearly 50 years, Neerja Chowdhury has been one of the finest political journalists of her time. She was political editor of the Indian Express, the very first recipient of the Chameli Devi Jain Award, and she has covered the terms of 8 of our prime ministers. In her first book, How Prime Ministers Decide, she takes us behind the closed doors where the biggest decisions of independent India were actually made. Today she joined me to talk about that Delhi and the theatre of power she has spent her lifetime watching. Neerja ji, very warm welcome to A Delhi Love. I read your book, I think this year, and I've been really wanting to talk to you since then. It was such a well put together, so well researched. And it was, I think it was a privilege to be able to get access to those kind of stories and read that. So Neerja, you started your career at Himmat, and that was one of the few newspapers at that time who was standing up, during the emergency period. How were those days as a young journalist standing up in a publication which is not with the government but is actually taking a stand against it?
That was a very exciting period. In 1976, Rahul Gandhi was the chief editor of the magazine, which came out from Bombay. It was one of the small, news magazines. But the small magazines, several of them put up resistance during the emergency. And Bhumiputra was one of them, and Freedom First was another one. First, of course, there were no guidelines, and then came the guidelines, and they were frequently changing guidelines. Aaj ye to dusra ye, and you questioned, even you couldn't leave a blank space. And you couldn't, for instance, on October 2, there was a meeting at Rajghat where Rahul Gandhi was there and J.B. Kripalani, and they were arrested for a brief period after that. That also was cut out, Finally, in 1977, there was pressure on the printing presses not to publish Himmat. So I remember from one week to the next, it was a different press we were moving to. And then we decided to go in for what is now called crowdfunding.
Oh, okay, at that time.
And we put out an appeal, and Tughlaq was one of the papers in Tamil Nadu, then edited by Chu Ramaswamy.
Yes.
And they put out that appeal, others also, it went out. And I remember, we put a graph on the wall of the office, and I remember the postman would come and there would be money orders, and you won't believe it, एक रुपए के money order भी थे जो आए.
To keep Himmat running.
For us to buy a printing press. And these were people who'd heard about Himmat or read Himmat, and I was told at that time it used to be even sold in black. Soon after that, of course, Indira Gandhi declared elections in January of 1977. Inexplicably, and to this day there is a debate on why she did it. She need not have done it. She was on top of the situation. And there were no sanctions from the world community. Of course, she was concerned that many of her father's friends and her friends in the Western world looked upon her as a dictator. Several other factors which I put in my book. Because under Indira Gandhi's chapter, what I chose to look at was not the creation of Bangladesh or emergency and those decisions of hers which have been written about enough. I decided to write about why did she go in for elections, and how did she come back to power by January 1980 with a record majority. She had not even clocked in 1971, her heyday, the year Bangladesh was created.
I've read the book, but you tell me, what are the one or two reasons you would put it down to? Why did she declare elections and why was she able to come back?
My own feeling, some people said she was more Nehru's daughter, Democrat Nehru's daughter, and less dictator Sanjay Gandhi's mother. Some people like to give this explanation. Because Sanjay Gandhi, her younger son, who she was grooming as her heir, was the extra constitutional authority during the emergency, taking many decisions on her behalf also, which bothered her, but also, the power behind the throne. He was seen as that. And it
was he or was he seen
as
that?
Yes, he was the power behind the throne, and many of his decisions led to the excesses in the emergency, which led to her rout.
So, you were telling me you were in Delhi at that time in Turkoman Gate.
I went the walled city and other areas, moving around. I remember one conversation, people saying, "Chunav aane do, dikha denge." So there was you've got a sense of a simmering opinion, people unhappy. Log bolte nahi the khul ke. My reading is that she wanted her son's rule to be legitimized by an election.
So it was the mother thinking.
Yes, and she felt, this criticism that had been coming. And she felt, obviously she went in for it because she thought she would win. The intelligence agencies had told her that she would get 340 seats. Indira Gandhi was not a personality who would go in for an election in order to lose. That doesn't
gel with what
she was. So she hoped that she would, give tickets to new people who would be Sanjay Gandhi's new team, and that people that he got surrounded by, people like Bansi Lal, Defence Minister, and others. She wanted him to break out of that. And also, of course, there were pressures from people like Vinoba Bhave, from the Communist Party of India, which was supporting her. So all those pressures were there, that she wanted to legitimize Sanjay's leadership, and she was grooming him to be her heir. And there are people, I've not put this in the book, who had said that when she came back to power in 1980, that she might have gone to Rashtrapati Bhavan in 1982 and allowed Sanjay to take over.
But as Prime Minister?
As Prime Minister. But that, of course, didn't happen because in 1980 he died in a plane crash. And the pain of being almost the Empress of India, which she was called earlier, to be seen as the arch villain of India.
I mean, that troubled her.
And I think that kind of thing hit her very hard. Plus, she had nothing to do. In the early days, this is very evocative, which piecing together, some from her doctor, some from others, what people had said. No files came to her. She didn't even know how to get to her friends. Numbers were not with her. The secretariat would deal with it. Official car had gone. So if she had
And
something...
that had been her whole life.
That had been her whole life. It was then that she decided to fight back. Once she decided to fight back, ये सब जो था ना, the depression, the low...
You know that the way you describe it, and also when she decided, you know, all this doubt and questioning of she being influenced by these people around her, that seems to be cast off completely. It was her, you know, going full forth.
If you see, you know, Sanjay Gandhi's behind her. 1980, when she won, she gave the credit to Sanjay Gandhi. So in a way, he was responsible for her downfall. I think it was one of the papers that had said, "Bachda gai ko kha gaya." You know, the cow, it was cow and calf were the symbol of the Congress party at that time. So the calf had devoured the mother cow. Initially she kept him completely in the background. And there is this lovely story of when Kapil Mohan had come to see her, and she talked about even her Kashmiri carpets that were such valuable possessions of her, given by her parents, you know. What will happen to them? I have no house to go to.
You know, what is fascinating about the book are these very visual descriptions. You can almost, you know, you can see that, which is not so much true about political books. How did you have access to this kind of information?
It's, you know, of course, some of it is what I saw myself, but that's a very small part. Much of it is interviews with people. You know, I've tried to corroborate as much as possible. And with oral history, written is okay, but oral history, people's memory may, you know, this is this hazard. So one has to try and corroborate as much as possible. I've done my best. But I must tell you this, Yasmin. Before I started writing this book, I told a friend of mine, I'd really like younger people to read it.
You mentioned that, and I was curious that, you know, why is that important to you, that you want younger people? Because, what do you want them to take from it?
Because I feel that, you know, people of my generation to read a book like this will be going down memory lane, which is nice. For the younger people, I find there is such a hunger for information. I don't buy this when people say they're not interested in what's happening to the country. I don't buy that at all.
That's really very encouraging, because most people are so cynical about this. It's very encouraging to you.
When I have a young person, 27-year-old I meet, I don't know him, and he comes and just sees me and hugs me and says, "Thank you for writing that book."
I can imagine. It's a lovely book.
My effort is, you know, been worth it. And so many young people have come to me at the airport, at the station, who just, you know, have read the book. And I told this friend of mine, I want to write about this not as beautiful prose. I want to capture the suspense, the drama of politics, Indian politics.
You do get that. Like I'm saying, it's a very descriptive, visually descriptive book. You can, you know, this scene like you were describing of Sanjay Gandhi being stuck on the highway, or there's another mention which I want to come back to later about VP Singh. But just taking you back a little bit, before you were a columnist, you were a reporter on the ground. You're the first recipient of the Chameli Devi Award. That's a phenomenal achievement, you know, because the award is based on a body of work. What are the stories that stand out for you from that time?
See, Chameli Devi came at a time, I cut my teeth in journalism in Himmat, which was a very precious experience. Then I joined the Statesman, 1982. And I was the first and I think the only civil rights correspondent that any paper has had. So 5 years I was civil rights. You know, it gave me an entry and a look at India I did not have. I'm a middle class person, and I studied architecture. I left it because I wanted to change society and, you know, do all that. 70s, 80s was a period of idealism. We felt we could make a difference to society. So my knowledge of India was very limited. To write about civil rights, it meant, I read in a paper that here was this Muzaffarpur mein, an under trial who'd been in jail for 33 years without the trial beginning. And I remember going to Mr. Sahai, who was the editor of the Statesman, said, itna chota sa Hindi paper mein tha. So why don't we, follow this up? He said immediately, yes, wo zamana bhi alag tha na. He said, yes, go. And I tracked this man. And then, because I wrote about his story, it came up in the court. And the court ordered his release.
You actually made an impact.
And then I tried to, it was one of the landmark judgments. D.Y. Chandrachud's father was judged then. It was a judgment by him. And that money, compensation must be paid for the years he'd lost. But then I decided to go and see kya hua. And I remember reaching that village. And I found him such a lonely, sad man. And I discovered that when he was released from jail, for 2 days he sat outside because he didn't know where to go. His life had become the prison. So I understood under trials ka kya system hai, hamare legal system, what does it add up to? Years the cases go on without any fruition. So also, child labor, going to Chandni Chowk at night and seeing how these young kids sleep, eat in the, these kude ke jo sare hote hain, wahan jaake they pilfer, they separate the plastic from what is useful and that kind of India, bonded labor. Again, I went to court on one of the bonded labor cases, investigations I'd done. And got landmark rulings. So for me, those 5 years just opened my eyes to an India I did not know existed.
But you also made impact. And you began as a reporter and only later become a commentator. But today it's the other way around. I won't even say the other way around because everybody is a commentator with social media. What do you feel about this? Like everybody has an opinion, but nobody is willing to do the groundwork. In fact, you're talking about the trial. There's a very famous case of Umar Khalid right now in jail. And I don't see any of the big media taking it up or any journalists going after this.
To be in jail for so long without bail, that is not the norm. That should not happen, really. And it's a very disturbing thing. I absolutely agree with you. And but even today, to get Delhi, if you're particularly located in Delhi or state capitals also, maybe less so, it's a very incestuous world. You think here you know everything. And as you say, give opinion. You go out of Delhi into the field, the ground, it's very different. And I think the good, solid people of India, they exist there. And wahan se change aayega.
The journalists, you mean?
No, journalists, ordinary people who are living their lives and still managing to, Jaise main 2024 mein, I went to Uttar Pradesh and Western UP mein, I was so surprised, Yasmin, to hear so many voices saying, ye Hindu-Muslim bahut ho gaya.
In Western UP.
Rehna to hame saath-saath hai. There's a fatigue setting in. That's ordinary. Now, political parties will play their games. Will throw up issues in order to win, go to any extent, Sam Dam Danbe. They're all of a kind. So, but the ordinary Indian and the diversity of India, no other country in the world is as diverse as India.
I feel that's our superpower.
That is our strength. That is our core strength. And you asked me, when I started to travel as a journalist, that is what I really discovered and love.
What India?
Yeah, it is to see this every 30 kilometers, 20 kilometers, India is different.
Yeah, the language changes, the food changes, the weather changes. I think
And everybody has, one person will have two opinions.
Yeah, we are a very opinionated.
And that is the strength of India.
You know, you could have written this book about, you have a whole body of work. Why did you choose to make this one about prime ministers? And then why hold it to like one decision about each?
You know, as I covered politics, the sense that I got was the story that was untold was how prime ministers at the top make the decisions. Not what has happened, but how it's happened. What are the pulls and pressures? What are the, ground level pressures that come, the lobbies that are at work, their own inclinations. I mean, Indira Gandhi is very different from a VP Singh to a Narasimha Rao to Dr. Manmohan Singh. Their personalities, their own worldview. So this was a story I felt had not been told. Prime ministers were so human. I tended to judge them. Look at the picture, black and white, bad, good. No, that's not the way things pan out actually. And it's a very nuanced, complex picture of how a prime minister decides for billions of people, and the sense of awe or awesomeness of that moment, that you are deciding for generations. Are you doing the right thing or not? What is it that they go through? And in a sense, I must admit this, that after writing this book, I'm maybe less judgmental.
Why did you choose these particular
prime ministers?
Prime ministers.
There are 14 prime ministers. I couldn't do 14. This book itself is 600 pages.
Yes, it's a huge book. And I still couldn't put it down.
So I had to narrow it down. How do I narrow it down? Okay, let me take prime ministers who completed that term. So that was one thumb rule. Usme मैंने modify किया. I kept out Nehru, not because it had become fashionable to rubbish him, but I felt my own political consciousness starts after Nehru, so start with Indira Gandhi. And then include Vishwanath Pratap Singh, even though his government lasted for only 11 months.
So that's the exception over there.
That is the exception, because I felt the decision that he had taken to implement the Mandal report, to give, as affirmative action for the OBCs, had changed India forever. Today we have an OBC prime minister, power is devolving, and in the coming elections, OBCs are going to play a very important role increasingly. They're a large group. So I felt that is somebody I should include. I thought of doing Narendra Modi. You will ask me that question.
Yes. Can I be honest with you? Can I be honest? When I first read the book, and I was like, why did she exclude him? And then you have given some reasons for that. And I must say that I was also kind of judging you and your intentions when I started reading, and then the fairness with which you have taken on each prime minister. By the time I came to the end, I understood in many ways why he was not there, because you explain your methods. But it's quite telling.
Yeah, I must tell you honestly, I did a draft on him.
On Mr. Narendra Modi?
On Narendra Modi, I considered doing it. And then I got the book, the draft, critiqued by a couple of friends. And they said to me that Neerja, ये तुम्हारा सबसे हल्का chapter रहेगा. And because he is the incumbent prime minister, naturally the attention will go mostly to what you write about him. And then I looked at it again, and I saw merit in what they were saying, because he's the incumbent prime minister, fewer people were willing to go on record.
Yeah, obviously.
About the decision that he had taken. And I must say, for the other prime ministers, people had gone on record giving their names. after they had demitted office. So it's a natural phenomenon, and in the case of Mr. Modi, maybe more so. I felt he had brought about a paradigm shift in Indian politics, and he's, you can say, arguably the most controversial Prime Minister India has had, and also probably the most powerful Prime Minister India has had.
Can you at least share that you've based it all on one decision each? What was the decision in his chapter that you based his story on?
Leave that. I decided, that I would just deal with it in the epilogue of the book. And I felt I would not be able to do justice to the time or to him, because I did, fewer people were willing to go on record about the real hard information which I have about the other prime ministers.
Perhaps understandable.
And also I didn't have the hindsight, the benefit of hindsight. It was, when the book came out, he was making a bid for the third term. Aage kya hoga, kaise hoga, would I be overtaken by events? So I felt leave it for the future.
So a separate book on him then.
Let's see how it goes.
Okay, tell me, of all the prime ministers that you've, you have studied and have in the book, who in your judgment had the most difficult time in office? Not the weakest, but who was so besieged by his circumstances and had the most difficult decision to make?
You see, every prime minister, if you look at it, between Indira Gandhi and Narendra Modi, are prime ministers who leave Rajiv Gandhi out, because Rajiv Gandhi is a tribute to mother. 414 unprecedented number of Lok Sabha seats, never clocked even by Jawaharlal Nehru. Because it was an assassination of Indira Gandhi, it was a tribute by the people of India to her and giving her son a chance. So forget that part. Every other prime minister headed a minority government. So we had moved. Here is a powerful, popular Prime Minister, Mrs. Gandhi, powerful, popular Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. Rajiv Gandhi leave out, the rest head a coalition government. Narasimha Rao also, which became a majority government, but started off with a minority. He broke other parties. That's how he acquired a majority 2 years into his term. So it is a coalition era that these prime ministers had or led, and that made it, by the very nature of their governments, very difficult for them. So that's my long answer to your question. They had to rely on other parties, they had tantrums. Vajpayee, 1996, he couldn't prove his majority, it was a 13-day government. Yeah. Then 1998, when he came, first 2 months, there was a headline saying Vajpayee reduced to tears.
Yeah, I remember.
Jayalalitha, Mamta, Samta, which is George Fernandez's party, not giving support and pulls and pressures. And I remember Mani Shankar Iyer saying, what has happened to Vajpayee's beautiful smile? It was difficult. Running a coalition was very difficult for every prime minister. But I would say, if I had to still narrow down, I would say Vishwanath Pratap Singh had a rough time.
Also very sad.
You see, look at him.
Yeah, that's, how he phenomenally rises up as this underdog, and then what a fall.
Here is this man, finance minister of Rajiv Gandhi, goes out of the Congress, expelled from the Congress, has his own group from within the Congress join him. He brings the entire non-Congress parties on one plank, an alternative, and all in 2.5 years. Today we are talking about an alternative to BJP, India bloc. They are not able to do it. And 2.5 years he brings them on a common platform. There is an election and he goes on to replace Mr. Clean Rajiv Gandhi as Mr. Clean Mr. Vishwanath Pratap Singh. Now, the pulls and pressures of that government, there was a Congress out to get him. There was a BJP which thought will not last after a few months, so better prepare to have this Rath Yatra and build their own base. And there were people from within his own government who were out to get him. So he had said, I'd given myself 2 years. It was all fast forwarded. In 11 months he was gone. And left a legacy of something like Mandal and empowerment of OBCs, which will stay with us for a long time to come, but had a rough time. So in order to save his government, he brought in Mandal. Initially, he was not one of those convinced about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. Since we're talking about Mr. VP Singh, you made a very interesting observation in your book about his way of dressing. That as when he had to put on the politicians, he would dress in white. Am I right?
Politician, matlab kurta pajama.
Yes.
And then when you are the formal prime minister, governance issues, then he would put on his achkan and topi.
The topi. Yeah, that was very interesting. Yeah, but it's very interesting that how VP Singh also caught the imagination of India. He was not a good orator. And now we place so much importance on oratory, and it's a time of viral reels and social media. But if you historically, if you look at it, all forget prime ministers, all politicians are not good orators.
They haven't been. That's true.
Yeah. And now there is this, suddenly the focus seems to be on oratory.
Oratory and performance.
And performance.
Performance and how you look, the optics. So political marketing is the big thing. How can you market? And you understand this world where communication revolution has taken place. And how you look will matter. I remember 1977 when Indira Gandhi had declared elections after the emergency. Jayaprakash Narayan, who she'd put in jail, he'd been released early, but his kidneys were damaged and he had bad health and he couldn't even stand properly. But he was the one who helped bring the entire opposition together on one platform. So during the campaign, there was a rally at Shivaji Park in Bombay. And I was there, so I can tell you this. Sham ki rally thi, it was chakachak bhara hua, that Shivaji Park. Must have been over a lakh of people. And there was this dais, and JP, he couldn't stand and speak, and JP ko bithaya hua tha on a chair. There were lights on his face, and he was virtually whispering. Utni bhi energy nahi thi. And there must have been pin drop silence in that big Maidan. To hear, to catch, we were all trying to catch what is he saying, asking people to throw out this dictatorial government. And it was, it was just mesmerized. So you're talking, JP was also not an orator of that kind. So you are absolutely right. It's the historic moment. It's the moral authority of the leader. All these things matter. I suppose they matter even today. It's not that people are so undiscerning or non-discerning. But performance, you need to, you need to get on podcasts like yours or on television, on the visual media.
It's very important to be constantly seen. But, there's a point you make in the book about that, after Nehru, power itself became the ideology of every prime minister. It's a very hard verdict. Anybody exempt from that? Because when you start writing about VP Singh, you do think, was it all about power? Was it?
It is a lot about power. But I would say again, having done the study, every prime minister has displayed flashes of wisdom.
Every prime minister?
Every prime minister. There's been that good side, I don't judge them that they didn't have India's interest at heart. I wouldn't make that kind of a sweeping statement today. And every prime minister has also demonstrated the ugly, ugly underbelly of Indian politics.
Like?
All of them, these decisions that to retain power, to wrest power, paisa, muscle power, how decisions actually, the ugliness of how decisions actually get
So how much is it the person in power making the decision, or the circumstances, or the advisors around?
Everything.
It's a mix of everything.
The buck stops with the prime minister, which many of them, I start the book with that, how the top is a very lonely place. And most of the prime ministers have said that. That moment when the buck stops with you, and the enormity of what you're about to do, I think that hits every prime minister.
It's nice that you're putting it out there, because I feel that while in American politics, their films will talk about this decision making and the media will talk about this decision, how much rests with the president. But in our case, because there is a parliament, we don't realize how much of the onus is actually with the prime minister.
Yeah, and in our, now people say it's a prime ministerial dictatorship. The prime minister has enormous powers, and the more popular a prime minister and with a majority, like Indira Gandhi, she won elections for a party, like Narendra Modi. He's a very powerful prime minister. Decisions are made by the prime minister's office, not so much by ministries. They're more conveyed to ministries. And of course there is a number two who's very powerful, Amit Shah. So I don't remember any other prime minister whose name was coupled with his number two. You know, like Modi Shah is what we talk about. I think the fact that he can win elections for the ministers, and so they cede some of that power that they might otherwise have exercised, say in Nehru's time. Because they're all, his ministers had all come out of the freedom movement, had an autonomous persona, political persona. And it was also he allowed them to make decisions, and he had a very weak prime minister's office, unlike Indira Gandhi and subsequently.
Yeah, then he was dealing with so much more. But there's another decision which I feel kind of really changed India's trajectory, which is the Babri Masjid demolition. And you've described Narasimha Raoji's stillness at that point of time. Do you think that was a decision paralysis, or that no decision was a decision?
I think no decision was a decision. Narasimha Rao said this, no decision is a decision. He said it several times. And in this case, you remember when he took over as prime minister, even before he was sworn in, the bureaucrats had gone to him, taken the files and said, we have to go to IMF World Bank, because India is virtually bankrupt. We will default on our payments. And he said, I knew the situation was bad, but I didn't know it was so bad. Laiye. And he immediately took no time to.
That's what I was coming to that. So when he had to take, getting Manmohan Singh in, and taking, and I don't think he gets, I don't think he gets enough credit for India's liberalization. I think
it must go to him.
It must go to him, because he's the one who got
those early months and weeks, and bureaucrats who, they're alive, and they've talked about this, and one has written about it also, that it was Narasimha Rao who was taking the uncomfortable decisions in those first months, and Dr. Manmohan Singh was very tentative. It is later that he came into his own, and of course his contribution is to be recognized also.
There's some of your stories carry a, in the book, they carry a decency which is quite not imaginable today. There is this mention of Mr. Rajiv Gandhi arranging for Atal Bihari Vajpayee's, treatment. There is also the other one, which is not that well known, which is of Jai Prakash Narayan refusing to let even Indiraji's papers, whatever he had, be copied. That's not that well known a story, and there's that grace you feel kind of gone out.
Yes, it has gone out. That sad part is not that somebody will be in power, somebody will be in the opposition, but so polarized today, and not just polarized, bhi samajh mein aata hai, so embittered. It's not possible to pick up the phone and say, look, what do we do? Which used to happen. This thing that you talk about, JP, JP's wife Prabhavati, JP and Prabhavati had stayed in Anand Bhavan, the Nehru home, for several months in the early 30s, when JP came back from the US. And he used to call Nehru Bhai, and he called Indira Gandhi Indu. So it was a very personalized relationship. So Prabhavati and Kamala Nehru, Indira Gandhi's mother, had become very good friends. And over the years, Kamala Nehru would write to Prabhavati letters expressing her anguish and all that she was going through in the Nehru household. That happens in every family. So she'd pen these letters. And when this fight was at its peak, Bihar movement, which JP led, of young people who wanted change, total revolution, and it had culminated in them asking for Indira Gandhi's resignation, and finally led to the emergency. Soon thereafter, that these letters were found in Kadam Kuan, where JP was staying. And one day, and the people who were with him said, "Yare potli mili hai." So JP ne kaha, "Arey, yahan hai chithiyan. I must give them back to Indira." So they tried to dissuade him and said, "These should go to a museum. These are of historical importance." So he said, "No, she will keep them carefully. I don't want them to fall in wrong hands." Meaning, I don't want them to be politically used against her.
That's amazing.
And he drove to her house and he gave the letters to her. These are the letters, and she just said a thanks. I don't know what has happened to those letters. Are they in the Nehru Memorial Library? Are all of, if they are all of them there? But some people who I've quoted have said, who read them, remembered, snatches from them. So I've quoted that. But Indira Gandhi, JP was very clear. His value system, as you say, was not political is political, personal is personal, and the two must be separated. Also, the other thing which you talked about, Rajiv Gandhi, that it was after Rajiv Gandhi's death that Vajpayee revealed that Rajiv Gandhi had saved his life. That he'd had cancer, he'd sent him abroad for treatment and given instructions that he'll be there till the treatment is completed. And subsequently, every Prime Minister used to send him to the United Nations General Assembly. उसके साथ साथ उनका checkup भी हो जाता था. And none of these Prime Ministers leaked that information. To say Vajpayee's got cancer means he's on his way out, and it's very damaging. None of them took that advantage.
It's not just the generosity of Rajiv Gandhi with this shows, but also the grace of Atal Bihari Vajpayee to acknowledge this.
That's right. Absolutely.
There was no need to.
Absolutely.
It was,
absolutely.
Tell me, there's any one Prime Minister after whom you think that, Indian politics were never simply the same? Again, it changed the rules for everybody who came after.
I think Indira Gandhi after Nehru, the Nehruvian era, Indira Gandhi's, she understood the nature of power. As I said, power, how it could be acquired and the extent to that Lakshman Rekhas went. And then Narendra Modi, both are powerful, both have changed, both brought about changes which were very far-reaching.
I don't think Indian politics still knows how to react and change post Mr. Modi. Am I right?
You can say the opposition does not know how to react. And I personally think that Narendra Modi represents a phenomenon. What is that phenomenon? What is the ground level change that's taking place in our society, particularly the Hindu society, that catapults somebody like Modi into power and keeps him there?
But then you yourself say that when you go into the interiors, you say people are saying there's enough of this.
Now, in the third term, there is a lot of dissatisfaction. Also, people are expressing, young people are expressing, NEET exam, the education system, there's dissatisfaction. There is dissatisfaction at the loss of livelihoods, the challenge that technology is posing, AI is posing. We are moving very rapidly when we don't know what's happening to us. So how are we going to, grapple with all this? Remains to be seen, but certainly dissatisfaction, but the opposition is not able. Now they say, the fear of the agencies, ED, CBI, income tax, yes.
And these have been taking over of the election commission.
And of course, whether it's the election commission or other institutions that are not left autonomous, the opposition, and that the BJP has huge money at its command, which we don't. But having said that, still, why is it that they are not able to get their act together as they could?
Why?
I'll tell you something hypothetically. Suppose hypothetically in 2023, Nitish Kumar floated the idea of India as an opposition bloc, which, they had several meetings. And then he wanted to be projected as the leader of that. I'm told Mamata Banerjee shot that down. Was it only Mamata Banerjee, or was she backed by the Congress also? We don't know the answer to that. But she shot it down. Suppose, hypothetically speaking, that had gone through. The numbers in the 2024 elections would have been very different, because UP gave a big chunk to India bloc, brought down the BJP tally. Suppose the 30 out of 40 that the NDA got from Bihar had been reversed in favor of India. If you had Nitish Kumar staying with India, and if he'd been projected as the leader, he would have stayed this side, not gone to the NDA.
But now look at his health condition. And
No, that is a separate thing. Look at the health conditions, whether it was a good idea, whether it was health that decided it, I don't know. Or for even you take, suppose in 2022, when they tried to, the High Command of the Congress tried to send Sachin Pilot as Chief Minister and move Ashok Gehlot as the Congress President nationally. Suppose that had gone through. I can say this, the number of seats from Gujarat would have gone up, maybe doubled, maybe 15 to ho hi jati. You add this Bihar tally and Rajasthan tally to the India tally, they would have been near enough or at majority figure. Good chance they would have made it.
So what is the problem?
So why is it that they couldn't see it? Why is it that they couldn't seize this opportunity? Why is it that they couldn't take that leap, or they take that risk, or put aside the small, goals? Today they are facing an existentialist crisis. What is happening to Mamata Banerjee? What is happening to the regional parties? You don't see a future, much of a future for them. They'll have to band together in order to
But it's
survive.
very interesting, because just a couple of years back, everybody was saying that the BJP is going to finish the Congress and regional parties will be the way to go. And now we're looking at a situation when regional parties are going.
All I'm saying is, they have not taken the larger picture, the larger vision on board and put aside the little things. VP Singh ने एक बार ये कहा था, मुझे कहा था ये कि उनकी बातचीत हो रही थी गोविंदाचार्य से, who was Advani's helping him, very important at that time in the BJP. And VP Singh said, first we've got to deal with the Congress. आपस में हम बाद में निपट लेंगे. Whoever is the better of the two will, can go ahead. First, our target is that. So if they want to, first if their target is the BJP, आपस में आप निपट लेना बाद में ना. अभी तो आप एक दूसरे से निपट रहे हो.
That's the most obvious.
I think that is the main thing, and somewhere I think they don't have the ability, the capacity to work as hard as the BJP does. Let's give them that due. BJP and its leadership.
It's a constant machine, right?
They are driven, they have this will to power, and they work
I've heard
very
that
hard.
a lot, and I've also heard that the opposition doesn't have it.
But one doesn't want to run down the opposition also.
Yes, one doesn't know what is true, because maybe we only see the BJP because that's what is shown to us. So we really don't.
And it's translated into a victory. Therefore, you see.
But you've been talking about and giving VP Singh's example that he has managed to get managed to get all the opposition parties. But then the disenchantment also set in pretty quickly. I mean, 2.5 years. And why does this happen with the most promising? To a large extent, it's happened with Arvind Kejriwal also. I mean, he has had a longer term, but I don't think there's that same promise attached to him. And but Mr. Modi seems to be, I mean, now he's in his 13th year. He seems to be the exception. I don't know if the disenchantment now is setting in.
He's the exception because when you win, when you're on a winning streak, then you can get away with it. When you're not on a winning streak, you've got to get other people together, then mega egos will not work. तो आपको फिर तो झुक के करना पड़ेगा ना, बार बार, in order to take others along, and you have to swallow many a bitter pill in order to do that for that larger goal. And I think that is where things get stuck.
Which opposition leader do you feel has the potential or can offer change to some extent? Yeah.
No, I used to think Mamata Banerjee as a woman leader was amazing, phenomenon in Indian politics. But then we've seen, the mistake she's made promoting her nephew, which had a reaction. She couldn't gauge the extent of the anti-incumbency and feeling against her government. So today, certainly, she's not likely to be the face. The only person who, is the Congress. Everybody will have to gravitate around the Congress, willy-nilly. And the Congress has decided that it is going to be Rahul Gandhi. And as I've said again and again, I feel Rahul is probably the most courageous politician in India today in terms of how he takes on the other side without any hesitation. And yet he doesn't seem to be clicking as an alternative to Narendra Modi.
Yeah, I was sensing a but. Why do you think that is?
I think somewhere...
He's young.
No.
He's taking up the right issues. And now that, all that argument about him not being on the ground, there is a Bharat Jodo Yatra, there is a the Nyaya Yatra. So he literally has put in the footwork. He's the leader of opposition.
Somebody, Ujjain said a line to me, which I think a lot of other people... He says, बाकी सब ठीक है, लेकिन भाषा का लफड़ा है.
So then we come back to being a good orator.
I don't know the full answer to this, but there is something that is lacking, which ordinary people feel he's a good man, sincere man, decent man. He probably would have had a very successful NGO. He's entitled and there because of his name. But the one thing he did, which had nothing to do with his family, is to walk 4,000 kilometers on his feet. And that the people of India recognize. I remember Maharashtra, I covered, to get to where he was, I drove to 250 kilometers to Akola. And I just stopped. And everybody I talked to about, not one person said, अच्छा नहीं कर रहे, बहुत अच्छा कर रहे हैं, हमारे बीच आ रहे हैं, हमारी बात सुनेंगे. So that is a kind, and it changes image. But they did not use that yatra to build the organization. The building of the Congress organization is the real challenge today. Should Rahul Gandhi do a Sonia Gandhi and say, I'm going to revive the Congress party, but I'm not there for prime ministership? VP Singh ne to bahut samay tak kaha tha, I'm not there.
Yeah, he kept saying, yeah, and then he took it.
Or is Priyanka Gandhi Vadra somebody who's being watched very carefully because of her parliament performance, and can she be a figure that can unite the Congress and others around her? She's a woman. I don't know the answer, because India today has also moved on. When I saw her in Bellary, where her mother contested, I thought, my goodness, she'll win an election for the Congress party, in the way she was being received and getting across.
Since you mentioned young India, there's another thing which comes to my mind, is that amongst the young politicians, there really is nobody who captures the imagination, and says, okay, this is the next one to watch out for, considering so much of the population. I mean, all the leaders that you consider youth leaders, from whether the Congress, the BJP, or across, there is not one person who stands out.
नहीं, Yasmin, ऐसा नहीं है.
Okay, so you tell me. Give me hope.
There's the leadership that's coming up. I mean, you feel sad about certain things, You're.
No, where's the ideology? You're shifting parties. So who's standing for what?
वो तो है कि if you can go from one to the other, and but I would say, and I will again tell you a story. 2024 election, when I was traveling through UP, central UP, which is Mulayam and Akhilesh Yadav area, वहाँ दलित बस्ती में मेरी बात हो रही थी, मल्लिकार्जुन खड़गे के बारे में बात हुई. So they were saying there's never been a Dalit Prime Minister. So I said, yeah, suppose they had projected Kharge as the Prime Ministerial candidate of the Congress party. If it had been announced, 15 days में electrify हो जाता. Today things go viral. that a Dalit Prime Minister for the first time in India never had it. Babu Jagjeevan Ram lost it 2-3 times and used to think a Dalit will never become Prime Minister of India as India is socially constituted. And I hope one day this will happen. But what I'm saying is, agar ye sambhav hai, once you build up the image of somebody in this age of political marketing, you build up that image, you cultivate that personality. It's possible to do that with the tools you have.
Yeah, but we are talking of Kharge ji.
I would look at any of them will rise up to this. I mean, take Sachin Pilot. You can say, will he be accepted too young? Why not? He's still in his late 40s.
Okay.
People will look at him. Shashi Tharoor. Hindi bhi ab achhi bolte hain. Certainly the educated, urban, middle class India will look at him. Professional will look at him. I would say even Manish Tiwari. I mean,
आप तो कांग्रेस की बात कर रहे हैं.
Now let's come. यहाँ तो बहुत clear है. यहाँ तो और भी clear है. Amit Shah virtually running the government today. Everything, barring foreign affairs, and he's running the show with the Prime Minister's concurrence and whatever the blessing. Yogi Adityanath, he's seen as the person of the future. And again, I'll tell you, a popularity that's not only UP. The day Devendra Fadnavis was sworn in as Chief Minister in Bombay, I was there at those grounds. जब योगी आदित्यनाथ को announce किया ना, उनको introduce किया, there was such applause in state of Maharashtra. He's called everywhere to campaign. Okay, whether he'll make it or not, he has the RSS backing. Let's see what happens in Uttar Pradesh. If he wins Uttar Pradesh for the third time, he'll certainly be in national reckoning. If not, then he will. It's another story. So UP.
But third time वालों को तो हटा देते हैं ना.
That tussle is on inside. Devendra Fadnavis, watch. Today he's got a grip over Maharashtra. Here's this man who swallowed the bitter pill and became a deputy CM after being CM because the party wanted him to. Today he's got a grip. He goes to Davos. He's seen with interest. The financial corporate world sees him with interest. He's seen much more of a moderate face. If that kind of a situation is required, Hemendra Biswa Sarma. Yes. He's there in Assam and a grip over the northeast. He's being watched with interest by many sections inside the RSS. पहले तो वो 1-2-3 नाम लेते थे ना, हेमंत बिस्वा शर्मा.
क्योंकि बाहर से आया था ना.
These people are moving in step with the national leadership and yet have carved out an autonomous political personality, which is not the case with the BJP chief ministers in the Hindi heartland for some reason.
Yeah, they haven't. All three of them, yeah.
And Mohan Yadav, of course, is in trouble.
Yeah.
Because of all this land scam.
So, at this, even if I refer to the book or to your work, so much is about access, but access is a kind of currency. In today's days, how is that exchange between journalists and politicians? So much of your work, it depends on the access that you have, and which was true then, and I think it's true now. But where is the point whether, between access and a journalist wants to protect that and therefore is not going for the hard stories in today's time because nobody is asking the difficult questions.
Yeah, that is a big dilemma for a journalist.
And yeah, because then you're protecting your access and you can't break the stories.
That is a big dilemma for a journalist. That is why you must not be dependent on one or two sources. I remember, I'll tell you this, when VP Singh's government was, not yet been formed, and there was a bahut ghamasan tha inside. And Ajit Singh, who I would see from time to time, I see a lot of people, he'd written a nasty letter to VP Singh about, things that needed to happen. And I knew he'd written this letter. I was trying to get hold of it. So I asked him that you have written. So he said, okay, yeah, I've written, but you get it from someone else, I said, ठीक है. And because I knew, I didn't rely only on one. And I learned through hard experience not to. I managed to get it. through somebody else. So I learned that underline for me, never rely on one or two people for your sources, because then ye hoga. There'll be pressure, we'll dry up your information access, and then you are going to be in trouble.
But I think today's, unfortunately, see, most journalists are doing soft podcasts. There's no hard hitting this thing. The Prime Minister has not given a press conference for years and years, yet he sat down for a 3-hour podcast, and that is exactly what is happening with all the press who has access. So I don't think anybody is.
I believe there were 80 interviews at the time of last elections.
Yeah, but they were all
one-on-one.
Yeah. But nothing came out of it. No, we didn't. We are still. It's the infamous question of how do you have your mangoes, and we're still doing that. Just dancing around the soft questions.
No hard questions also. Like I remember soon after he became Prime Minister, he did 4-5 with the editors meetings. Arthur's editors there. I went to one of them, and for 1.5 hours he answered every single question. And let me tell you, they were not soft questions. I'm talking about 2015. Okay, or early 2015 or thereabouts. It's not that he's not able to answer them.
But
I don't know what to me it's bad advice given to him. He will be able to, look at the number of questions, and of course you are briefed. But Prime Ministers deal with such complex things, and to have an articulate Prime Minister like Narendra Modi to say he's not going to be able to answer difficult questions, I don't buy that at all. So what is the reason that you feel I'm not going to do it? Is it, I think it's just bad advice. Third term, it should be done in any democracy. Unless they made a thing, the media maang rahi hai to nahi karna. But that also doesn't make sense,
Well, I guess there is good majority. Although you don't really need to. Maybe that's the advice.
Also, conversation with everybody, not just with him. Conversation with all politicians has become a one-way street. They don't want to give you an interview. Or have you ask questions. They will send everything through the social media, what they have to put out, X. They don't need to meet you today at all. That is the unfortunate part.
But now with journalists not asking the questions, we come to political, satirists who do that. And now if you go that way, you took a stand when Kunal Kamra's, when he did that show, and the studio was vandalized, and Mr. Shinde's, I think, team reached, and it was rather, I think you were one of the few people who actually took a stand.
No, that was absolutely uncalled for. Somebody who is a comedian, satire has been part of our public life. And we were saying that Atal Bihari Vajpayee was such a natural all the time. The wit that would come, and not just him, others also. There was so much of a give and take, and the whole house would burst out laughing, and the tensions would go out. You were more able to have a dialogue, get things through, get bills through. To take satire out of public life, somewhere you kill the very soul of democracy, I feel. And this is something politicians must take in their stride.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate what happened with him.
Yeah. And his career is over. He's trying to do whatever he's trying to do, but in many ways, the career is kind of over.
And if you get into public life, you must have a thick skin.
True, yeah. But tell me, we were talking of the BJP. Now with this whole Ram Mandir controversy happening and that is UP. What do you feel, that the Ram Mandir was always electoral issue for them, or was it an actual ideology cause? Because now with this, with these, it's such a petty theft accusation which has been put from this ideology of the Ram Mandir to kind of have to deal with theft. What do you think of it? How will it affect them?
I think whether it was ideological or political, both, It was in sync with their ideology, and it became the symbol of the movement now for almost 50 years, which brought them to power so convincingly, including the Prime Minister, the Hindu Hriday Samrat, that tag. It's an accepted thing. The RSS, its position today in the country's life. And I think the biggest, others may ride it, but the biggest setback and denting has been to the RSS's reputation on this. You know, you hear people, they say BJP political organization hai to phir bhi samajh mein aati. RSS. These are people who, you know, been part of that family. So I think the RSS leadership probably realizes that you know, there'll have to be damage control. But that damage control should not go towards, you know, seeing a conspiracy. People who are saying, you know, in the opposition.
Oh, between them.
You know, they are saying it's a conspiracy that others are attacking us for this. Then they themselves don't believe in Ram, they didn't go to the Ram temple. But that has nothing to do with it. You know, that is deflective. What this has happened, it's very unfortunate. It's hurt the people who had faith, and the guilty must be punished. That's the simple thing. There's no other issue at hand that has to be.
But will it impact them and on electorally?
Yes. Yes. How much will depend on how strongly Yogi Adityanath manages to show that the guilty will be punished. Much will depend, because somewhere there is I get the sense that public opinion is on hold.
Yeah, even I get that sense. Yeah.
कि देखते हैं क्या करते हैं इसके बारे में. So he's been put on the spot because it's under his wider leadership of the state that this has happened, and what he does now, I think that will determine how much the Samajwadi Party and the other side gains or does not gain, and Yogi himself establishes himself as a tough leader who will not allow it to happen.
You know, there's an interesting part that, you know, we were talking about Narasimha Rao ji earlier. He very clearly at that point of time, for a brief period, moved the center of power from the north to the south. And I think 8 of our 14 prime ministers have been from Uttar Pradesh?
Yes, 8 out of 14.
You think that grip is finally loosening?
You know, the delimitation exercise is going to be very critical. That's a big challenge for the Prime Minister and Amit Shah. So, because the South is agitated, the North-South divide intensifies around delimitation if it's not handled well. Then that throws up a very different kind of scenario. But whether the South will have a Prime Minister, can do, we don't know. Abhi to Narendra Modi is there. And those who are being seen as his successors in the post-Modi era, which is not immediate.
There doesn't seem to be that.
There's no, at least 2029, there doesn't seem to be, it'll be him from all accounts. They are also not, those being seen are not from the South.
Yeah.
And as far as the Congress is concerned, yes, the Congress's strength and base today comes from the South.
And there's also what Vijay, you know, this Vijay phenomena, you know, sweeping in and the old Dravidian giants toppled. That is also a phenomenal thing which has happened.
It's a new thing happening.
I don't think it's ever happened before.
No, because, you know, there is a fatigue with established parties. And even the cockroach party. Now it's gone offline. I don't know how much of a success it is as an offline party, but it represents a huge public sentiment amongst the young Gen Z.
What do you think of it?
I think they touched, you know, they touched the pulse, educational reform on the NEET UG affair, then also livelihoods, and demanding Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation. There are all kinds of people who've come from different parts. But it's not a huge kind of thing.
Not like what you saw,
organized.
what we saw with the Aam Aadmi Party.
It's not like that at all. Not like that at all. It's much more.
So it's a pressure cooker effect. You feel like a little simmering happening.
This may be why the government has also moved wisely. Let them have their say in all parts of the country, rather than coming down with a heavy hand, which is a good thing. It's the pressure cooker effect. Let them have their say. Which should happen in a democracy. You have a right to protest.
No, well, that's probably what when it happened with the previous agitation, and maybe the Congress also thought like that. Let them have their say.
But coming to whether the Congress is in Kerala, in Karnataka, with D.K. Shivakumar now coming, and D.K. Shivakumar will try very hard to make sure that his CM term is not limited to 2 years, that he gets another, he'll do everything possible. And that's a good thing. He'll have to take along Siddaramaiah and his people. But certainly that a role in Tamil Nadu, in Telangana, I don't know what will happen in Andhra Pradesh. There is a move that all the old parties that carry, or regional parties that carry the name Congress and were offshoots of the Congress, should merge back into the Congress. Whether that will fructify, that's a big debate going on, and talks are going on. Will the NCP do it? Will Jagan Reddy's party do it? All very difficult, not so. And Mamta's party, of course. So there is a churn on. Difficult to say
What will happen?
whether a South Prime Minister in the near future is possible. Doesn't look likely in the immediate future. But India is a country of surprises, so you can never say.
Actually, tell me, you call on your Twitter bio, you call this the great Nautanki of Indian politics. After 50 years almost in a front row seat, what in this theatre of this Nautanki still delights you, and what has stopped being funny?
It's fun.
Yeah.
Nothing has stopped being fun. Some of my friends ask me, "My God, you cover politics, it's so dismal." And I said, no, I find it therapeutic at one level. There is a Nautanki every hour. There's not a dull moment in Indian politics. Tamasha hai, performance hai, jod tod hai, reaching out with grace hai, friendships hai, galiyan hai, sab kuch hai. It is not dull, and India is not dull. That is the reason why politics is not dull.
So are you hopeful of where this country's politics is heading in the future?
Look, I would like to think of myself as an incorrigible optimist. And I think India, because of its diversity, because of its resilience, will come through challenges.
I want to ask you something. In every career or in every field, women don't have it easy, unfortunately, till today. And of course, you started again in a heavily male-dominated. What do you think you had to do to make the boys' club take you seriously?
I think just be a professional. I didn't think of myself as a woman or a. I wanted to be taken as a professional seriously for my work.
But in fact, women's safety runs is a constant in your writing. And am I right that you did say somewhere that any party serious about women's reservation should first, look at their own men and not give tickets to, where there are allegations against the men?
That of course, that if there are serious allegations, tickets should know whether it's man or woman. But I tell you what has struck me of late, which excites me a lot, and again this is something I've spoken about, when I cover elections, and I talk to or go and do any story, I look at the younger women, their aspirations are mind-boggling. They want to reach out to the skies. And I feel if that energy is tapped, this century will belong to Indian women.
That I have no doubt about. But my concern is, and coming to the women, the reservation bill, right now it's been, receded behind delimitation and the census. Do you think it will truly arrive? And I have my doubts about how successful it can be, because if there is, it's not just about women being given this space, it's also about men having to recede. And I don't see how that's going to be a very comfortable transition. And also, if you're going to play this thing of alternating that's between a man and a woman, that's how in the reservations, and I don't see that playing very well, because then nobody is going to be answerable and responsible. Forget gender.
That is why the bill didn't go through. It has had such a checkered career.
Yeah.
And one is the rotational part, one is that it will be at the cost of the men. So what this government has done is increase the number of seats. Now there are people who are saying 800 parliament में value क्या रह जाएगी MP की. That is the other side of the story. But if you have a critical mass of women, which you've seen in the local bodies now over 30 years, with 1/3 up to 50% reservation for women, there is a big corpus there of women with certain amount of experience who will now come up to your assemblies and also.
I agree.
But they're thinking, this critical mass you hope will help focus much more on issues that are dear to you and me, to many people.
I feel that, yes, and I feel that a women's reservation has to be looked upon as not for these women who come into power. It is something which has to be looked at for the women of the country.
That's right.
That it's for them, and women representatives should. But I still think there are a lot of things to be ironed out in this.
Yes, there are, and have been. A lot of things have been, they need to revisit.
Yeah.
Even at that time, this thing that you'll have the constituency only for one term and then you must move to another. What is the incentive for you to nurture that constituency?
Yes, and then you're not answerable also.
Then you are not, and there is no incentive, that I must work hard.
Yeah, correct.
So those issues are there. But, to take those issues as an excuse not to allow women to come into those leadership roles, there'll be problems, you'll have to sort out the problems. That I don't think is a desirable, thing. Give women the chance to lead India. They will change things.
So, now, your first book came out at
3 years ago.
And I feel people almost across the world, it's not an Indian phenomenon, limit women by their age, which is, and I think they limit people by the age, but it applies to women more. What do you think about it?
Not really. As long as you're working, able to work, enjoy your work.
I think that's the key. To keep
Travel,
working. Yes.
Go to the field.
So tell me, what is advice you would give to young women?
The younger women today, the younger media women today, face many more challenges than we did.
How?
It's a much more difficult situation. Many more pressures, difficulties to overcome, many more opportunities also. No doubt about that. I hesitate to give advice because there is. I meet them and there's so much to learn from younger women. But all I would say is stay the course. Go by what your heart tells you and stay the course. Don't get off it.
Okay, so one more thing I'll ask you. You've you've lived in Delhi all your life?
Based in Delhi, but I've traveled, yes.
So how would you describe Delhi? The podcast is called Delhi Love, so I have to ask you about that.
It's a city, difficult with pollution and chikungunya, malaria. It gets to you at one level. This is our Delhi. Why are we allowing all this to carry on and not raising our voice? But Delhi is something, I can't think of not living in Delhi. This is where I belong. This is my city. It's where I've grown up, studied, and gone to other places. And it is really the heart of India. And it is now second largest in the world, this metropolis of ours. And you go, if you South Delhi, New Delhi is one area that you get used to, but if you go into the other areas, it's just spread like, you can't imagine. And it's really, in one way, the heartbeat of India.
Yeah, even I think so. Acha, tell me, after covering politics for so many years, what continues to excite you about it?
Something new all the time. Even the politicians who we look at as a dirty word, they also excite me. There's so much talent out there just for all the problems, and it's really India that excites me, even today. Yeah.
I get that. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was a really, really interesting conversation, and I could have actually gone on and on talking to you. And I hope I have you again sometime.
Thank you.
With the next book.
Thank you.
As soon as that happens.